And today, the Taliban is promising to respect women's rights as long as it's within the norms of Islamic law. Many have been fearing that under the Taliban control, Afghan women would lose their freedom. 20 years ago, they weren't even allowed to leave their home without men escorting them. It is a stark contrast to the accomplishments of one Hayward City Council member, Aisha Wahab. She is the first Afghan American to be elected to public office here in the United States. She joins us now to share more of her reaction to the situation in Afghanistan. Council member, thank you for joining us. Let me just start off by asking, do you have family members in Afghanistan? And if so, have you been able to be in touch with them?
Extended, I wouldn't say close family members, but I think every Afghan knows somebody in Afghanistan. And I have actually been able to make contact, and for the most part, they are okay. The fear of the unknown and what's going to happen in the coming days and weeks and months is really the concern that everybody seems to have.
Absolutely. Now, the Taliban talks about, giving women freedoms within the confines of Islamic law. I myself, I am Muslim American as well, so I kind of know the confines of the law. They're very flexible depending on what country you're talking about, depending on how they want to interpret those quote unquote laws. How much faith do you have in the Taliban coming out and saying that women will be afforded some freedoms?
Well, I first want to say that Afghanistan historically was never a religious country, number one. With 40 plus years of war, it has become into this, dark religious extreme culture. The situation ends up being that although the Taliban are stating that women can be part of the government and can go to work and can go to school, the sad reality is you do not see women in the street. And women were never part of the original peace talks, and that is the biggest concern. If they're going to be just used as a symbol and a puppet, or are they truly going to be part of the decision-making process?
Have you been to Afghanistan in the recent years to kind of give us an idea, maybe firsthand, of what life was like prior to the last 24 to 48 hours?
Definitely. I actually went to Afghanistan when President Ghani was being selected as president. The honest truth was that as an American, when you go to Afghanistan, you very much appreciate being an American. You are, as a woman walking around, people would say that, we know you're American because of the mere fact that you're making eye contact, that you walk very confidently, that you feel very comfortable to speak to whoever you want. Yet the sad fact of the reality is that this is not the United States. I will say, so that was what it was like literally several years ago. Right now, I think that there's a lot of fear as to what is the role and how are women going to be treated. But it's not just women, it is minorities as a whole. Not only ethnic and religious minorities, but minorities that, feel very differently about government, feel very differently about the way they want to lead their lives. The Afghan people have never been able to be, have self-determination, if you will.
It is just so heartbreaking to see footage coming from the last 24 to 48 hours of just people scrambling to try to do what they can to save their families, to save themselves, get themselves out of the region. I was watching coverage of it on Sunday, and I was hearing that a lot of fathers were trying to marry off their young daughters in fear of, or trying to prevent, marriage into the Taliban. Just, no parent wants their 12-year-old to get married, but for them, it's the only option or the only way that they can, in their minds, guarantee a safe union between their daughter and someone else. How do you think the women and these minority groups that you speak of are going to react? Again, I'm from Iran, and I have a lot of family there, and I just see firsthand from family members and just the media that, covers Iran as unbiased as possible, that there are a lot of groups that kind of rebel and act out against the government, and, they don't fear the repercussions. They don't fear getting arrested. For them, it's more important to voice their views and their opinions and kind of gain traction on some reform. Do you think that that's a possibility for some of the residents in Afghanistan? I do think that the governments in the Middle East, they are backwards to some degree, but I also think that the Iranian government might not be as overtly terrorist as, let's say, the Taliban. Do you think the people of Afghanistan would even feel comfortable to kind of speak out or rebel against the government there?
You know, I think that there's going to be many groups that are not going to be happy with the Taliban. And yet at the same time, the majority of the focus of the media has been in the larger cities, right? Nobody has really been looking at, you know, what is happening in the rural areas, which is 70% of the country. Number one. Number two is the fact that the activists will continue their work as activists, whether it's through women's rights, you know, religious and minorities, or just, you know, way of life and culture and so forth. Especially with the media. Social media is able to allow them to elevate their voice. However, the government, even when I went to Afghanistan, under a Western-backed government, they were blocking off a lot of the internet sites. It would always say blocked due to, you know, showing graphic images or whatever the case may be, under the Minister of Information and Culture. The sad reality is that they were blocking news sites as well, right? So me as an American trying to go to CNN or wherever, they were blocking some of those sites during certain days. So does that mean that the governance of the Taliban will make Afghanistan become a black hole and cut off from the world? The internet is one of the most vital tools that all activists have. We can say that in the United States, and we can say that in Afghanistan. The situation really ends up being that they will be active, but their security is more at risk. And that is the biggest concern is with regardless of which government was in place, activists always had to fear for their lives.
And I guess ultimately, do you have, you know, any positive outlook in this? Do you think the Taliban is going to kind of be a moderate in the way they try to rule? Is there, do you think this is going to be a long-term thing? Again, I compare this to the Iranian Revolution. I wasn't alive when that was happening, but from what I understand, it's somewhat similar. And that's been the case for it's been like that in Iran for the last 40 years. Do you think that this is going to be a long-term change for Afghanistan?
You know, I think that the Taliban is not necessarily moderate. Let's be honest about that. Any group that follows a religion and, you know, makes their laws based on a religion based in, you know, almost 2,000 years ago across the world is not going to be a modern government or a modern, you know, thinking government. That's one factor to really deeply consider and be concerned about. But the second factor is the influence around the region, the sphere of influence that it always is at play in Afghanistan with the great game theory is, you know, will Iran have influence in Afghanistan? Will Pakistan and India have influence? Will China and Russia, China who has already announced that they are all full swing going to be supporting the Taliban and efforts in Afghanistan to expand their policies through that region. Those are of concern to the United States and should be a significant national security concern as well. Is there hope? You know, there's always hope. We always have to have hope because as long as hope is alive, the dream of a peaceful Afghanistan will never die. And that is what people are hoping for. But I will say that I think that there will be more fighting. The original government that was backed by the United States and Western powers had individual warlords being legitimized by the United States and Western countries. And that's the biggest injustice to the Afghan people. That is one of the biggest domino effects as to why that government never worked.
All right, well, Council Member Aisha Wahab from Hayward, really appreciate your time. This is such a rapidly moving, developing situation and one that we all will be keeping our eyes on, but we appreciate you taking out your time to speak with us on your opinion on what's going on. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.